busy with the baseball team playing some baseball all week long and playing for their lives and the chance at a wild card game on Tuesday. And, of course, the undefeated Baltimore Ravens returning home 3-0 now to take on Jack Del Rio and the Oakland Raiders. They're coming in for a 1 o'clock battle. But off the field, there is the business of sports, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with this guy. He works for one of my favorite publications, Sports Business Journal. You can follow his work there or out on Twitter at his name, D. Kaplan, SBJ. We welcome Daniel Kaplan onto the program, who covers not just the NFL and tennis, but business issues as they relate to sports everywhere. And they got a big conference coming up next week out in California that I've always enjoyed in New York. Dan, what's going on, man? Happy fall to you. This is in the business parlance. This is the money season, right? I mean, this is the money season for baseball. It's the money season for football. Clearly, the NHL and the NBA are trying to get off to a good start. It's a very, very active time for your attention on weekends, right?
It's active for anyone's attention on weekends, especially as we get into the next couple of weeks with preseason for NBA, NHL coming in. It's always early October period is always a very busy time in sports.
Well, look, the off seasons are usually tumultuous in one way or another. I mean, you got labor negotiations one year, you got jurisprudence and the Ray Rices and Goodell as the hanging judge and Greg Hardy and all that, and you got Deflategate, all that stuff going on. This was the one off season where they threatened to move 3 franchises. They almost moved 2 of them. They wound up moving 1 of them. They kind of screwed St. Louis over. They got their LA thing together. They've kind of walked away from that, but this concussion thing and head trauma and research, that is the PR thing that they're hiring all the president's men to defend them against, correct?
Right, and obviously your reference to all the president's men is their new head of communications, Joe Lockhart, who at one time was the spokesman for President Bill Clinton during the Monica Lewinsky scandal. So, and under Joe, there's been a more muscular response, and we've seen that in recent weeks with the House GOP on the Energy and Commerce has asked the Inspector General of the I think it's the Health and Human Services Department to take another look at the allegation that the NFL interfered with a grant to a concussion doctor. The NFL has hit back hard on that subject. They've gotten the GOP on this committee to ask the Inspector General to take another look at it. And I think, while we don't really need to go into the nitty-gritty details, what it underscores is the NFL doesn't want to sit back and be painted as the boogeyman on concussions anymore. They feel they're not getting their due credit for the research dollars they put in and the changes to the game that they've made and the investments they've made in youth sports. So this is something we will see every time a negative story appears on them. Expect some sort of pushback.
Well, they made a whole movie last year about it, right? I mean, the boogeyman in the movie was Roger Goodell, Paul Tagliabue, and the owners of the National Football League, right?
Right, and that movie depicted a period of time in the 2000s, of course. The NFL feels they've turned the corner and that they are no longer that league. So yes, they were certainly the boogeyman in that movie Concussion, starring Will Smith, that was based on, in part on League of Denial. So yes, they were the boogeyman. They don't feel they're the boogeyman anymore, and when they're depicted as such, they're hitting back.
Well, it's interesting for me as the season begins that people always try to take down the NFL the weekend of kickoff, right? There's always some expose about something. This time, it's really started from the inside with Kaepernick and teams having to react, and the league as a business and as an American business, that so many things with sports and government are interconnected. Even in Donald Trump running for president, he was a guy trying to put the NFL out of business 3 decades ago with his work in the USFL. I'm sure, you can add the NFL to the one of many, many things that Donald Trump hates. And that comes up when he implies the NFL wrote him a letter about television ratings in the debates on Monday night. As we learned, people prefer, Clinton versus Trump to, the Falcons on Monday Night Football.
Well, look, I mean, this is sort of almost a once in a lifetime type scenario. This type of presidential debate. This was not your typical presidential debate. Now, I imagine a typical presidential debate would still outdraw a typical Monday night football game. But look, these sorts of event conflicts will happen. But we've certainly seen that said, the Monday night football game aside, and the historic low ratings for that game, we've certainly seen a decline in NFL TV ratings. I mean, nothing precipitous, but it has been down for a league that has been nothing but up over the last 10 years.
Isn't that normal, though? What do they say? What goes up must come down, right? I mean, you can only get so many people engaged in the league, right? I mean, it feels like saturation is something that they should be concerned about because getting more money from the customers they have, okay, maybe, but finding people that have not discovered the NFL that are suddenly going to fall in love with it, that feels a little far-fetched to me in 2016.
Well, let's peel the onion back a little. There's no doubt the NFL feels, and I think Bob Kraft has made these comments that there's only so much more growth left in the United States, and it's why when you complain about them playing games overseas, that's what's going on there. They're looking for more growth, and they realize more growth is not going to occur inside the U.S. The other thing, from a business perspective, is the TV ratings. You have to look at how they're measured. As more and more people cut the cord, as more and more people watch on different devices that are not picked up or not measured by the Nielsen rating system, you have to start to question, when you hear a rating fell 10%, did it really fall 10%, or did 5% of those viewers just watch on a different device that's not picked up? So there's a macro technological dynamic going on here beyond just is the NFL reached its saturation point?
Well, Dan, a little background on me. I've been on the radio 25 years here. Arbitron for 25 consecutive years swears no one has ever heard of me until I say your name on the radio, and then everybody runs and what did you say about me? The Nielsen ratings in Baltimore, the Orioles right now, who have empty stands, an empty brand, no buzz around the brand really at all, and haven't all summer long, and they've raised ticket prices. They sent out season ticket renewals in February because the old man that runs the team, this is the way he operates things. And the ratings say, oh, everybody's watching the Orioles. Dan, that's garbage. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, for being a global warming denier or denying science to some degree, the science of Nielsen is what I deny. So I don't ever believe anything they say because I think it's kind of concocted. And my 25 years of dealing with this is if they're saying less people are watching the NFL, I would be very, very leery of that measurement.
Look, that's my point, and my point is that Nielsen has come out and said they're trying to figure out a way. They've gotten ideas to capture viewership on these multiple devices, but right now when you hear, say the Sunday night games on NBC are down 10%. Well, there's so many different ways to watch that game other than your TV set.
Dan, I've watched it on a plane the last 2 weekends. Literally, it comes to me on my plane.
Ways. But there's the NBC Sports app. There's if you have TV Anywhere. If you say I'm at home and I have Fios and I have my Fios app on my device and I decide I'm walking to the next room and I'm watching the game on that device. Well, guess what? Nielsen's not picking it up on that device. If I was watching it on the TV, it would be. So look, there's so many different scenarios in which I could say I'm watching this game. I'm a Nielsen home, but I'm not being picked up. So it's a problem. It's a problem. But these continue to be the holy grail. People say the ratings are down, the ratings are up. Look, we see this with political poll numbers. There's poll numbers are up, poll numbers are down. Are the polls accurate? People just want the numbers.
Dan Kaplan, he is D. Kaplan, SBJ, out at Sports Business Journal. You can follow him at sportsbusinessjournal.com. Always good to have someone on here talking some sense when it comes to the business of sports. And keeping on the NFL, the offseason was, the move to L.A., there was nothing scandalous about that outside of St. Louis, right? Like, it's just business is normal, and I think we see what that is going to become out there when they're going to build this megaopolis Jerry's World 3 miles from the LAX airport, right?
Yeah. Well, look, first they've got to resolve their FAA questions. The FAA still has not signed off on that. A groundbreaking should occur in the next month or two, but that's just digging the big hole. Building up, they still need FAA clearance, and it's been nearly a year since the FAA issued a notice of presumed hazard that this would interfere with radar signals from LAX. So that's not resolved. I expect it probably will be resolved, but look.
You're saying the NFL is going to buy off the FAA?
I don't know. Well, I think Stan Kroenke might buy off somebody. That's pretty clear that he doesn't have any hesitation to do that. But
it's like the Rodney Dangerfield. He does have a lot of money.
LA is not, but the scenario. Look, the scenarios in LA are whether the Chargers or Raiders are going to be moving to LA.
Sure.
I think the big story of the last week or two, and this I can confirm, is the NFL really wants the Raiders to stay in Oakland. They don't want the Raiders in Vegas. There's been this long story over the last 3-4 months about Mark Davis, the owner, going to LA, and the votes of the committee to appropriate tax dollars for a stadium. The truth is, Oakland is a phenomenal market. The North California market is booming. It's where Uber is headquartered. It's not a market the NFL really wishes to turn away from, and they would like to see more work done there before they turn their back on that market. So this whole storyline of the Raiders going to Vegas in the next year or two, I don't see it happening.
Well, are they still allergic to Vegas because of the money and the gambling money there, or is this a continuation of? I mean, look, Al Davis has been dead a couple of years ago. It still feels like, and the Raiders are playing here this week, right? They're playing the Ravens, and Jack Del Rio's running them, and they're going to be a decent team this year. I've been out to that stadium a couple times in the last year and a half, and it's really an embarrassment to both Major League Baseball and the NFL that they're allowing it to just sort of string along, that at some point they're going to need to fix San Diego and they're going to need to fix Oakland. And I know there's a lot of scenarios out there, but there should be plenty of money wherever they go, right?
Well, the Raiders could look. I mean, we have to see what happens with the Chargers' public vote in November and what they decide to do. They have an option to move into the stadium in San Diego. In Los Angeles with Kroenke. If they say no to that for whatever reason, they get their stadium vote, they don't get their stadium vote but stay in San Diego, the Raiders could then move into that slot. And that is something that a lot of people see happening. San Diego staying in San Diego and the Raiders perhaps moving to LA. I think the NFL, if the Raiders have to move, they would probably prefer to see the Raiders move to where they're not the number one team, as opposed to Vegas. I don't know who goes to Vegas. You asked if this was the NFL against gambling. I think the NFL is getting past that issue. They're not as opposed to a team in Vegas. I just think that they're not sure it should be the Raiders, and that not just because of Mark Davis and his dad, but because Oakland is a pretty darn good market.
Daniel Kaplan covers all things tennis, financial, and the NFL reporter at the Sports Business Journal, where they do great work. SportsBusinessJournal.com and D. Kaplan, SBJ. Last thing for you, I know you don't cover baseball, but I'm sure you follow and you're a fan. To see all these empty seats in all these stadiums in September, I know the NFL was very concerned about empty seats. And look, I was in Cleveland with empty seats last week. I was in Jacksonville with empty seats this week. There are problems in certain markets. I mean, some of the places they've fixed that problem, like in Arizona and other places where they had struggled at various points to sell tickets. Clearly, they got 100,000 people in LA coming to the games now, so some things are up there. But baseball really has struggled, even with good teams and the wild card and the revamped nature of this, to get people in Baltimore out for Red Sox-Orioles meaningful games in September. Dan, I've been around here a long time. We haven't had a whole lot of meaningful September baseball games between the Red Sox and the Orioles. It's not mind-blowing because I've seen the creep that owns the team for the last 25 years, and I've seen how the community's been treated like an ATM, and I've written at length about that. But I think on a global sense, it's not just a Baltimore problem. It's a Detroit problem. It's a Cleveland problem. It would be an Atlanta problem. It might be a Houston problem. Empty seats for playoff games at baseball. This is an issue at Major League Baseball.
Look, baseball faces a demographic ticking time bomb. The younger generations don't follow baseball. You look. I mean, we've written about it. This is a continuing issue for Major League Baseball, getting young people who want to go to the game. I was just in someone's office the other day. He's a huge Met fan. He actually grew up being able to sit in the dugout. He asked his 20-year-old son, "Did he want to go to the Met game?" He said, and the response is, "Why? Why would I sit there for 3 hours and watch that?" So. It's a big problem. Baseball needs to do more to go after the millennial crowd, and I think maybe that's what you're starting to see with some of these empty seats. It's also the price of these games has gone very expensive. That's another issue. It's very expensive to go to a Major League Baseball game. I took my son and his friend's dad to a Mets game.
That's four of you, right?
Four of us for a couple. It was and these were not good. These were not great seats. It was down the third base line. Maybe 20th row. I mean, it was $300. For that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money
on a Wednesday night to see them play the Phillies.
I think it was like a Sunday afternoon. I don't know who they played. It may have been the Phillies.
Were there people there?
Look. New York's a baseball town. New York's a baseball town. So my complaints in New York will fall on deaf ears. But the rest of the country, a lot of the rest of the country outside of the major baseball markets of Chicago, Boston, New York, these are issues. These are definite issues.
Hey, great having you on, man. It's our time of the year. Lots of stuff going on with the NFL and obviously the election season and all that. We'll be keeping abreast of all things through Sports Business Journal. I always appreciate the time. You and your crew do a great job there, man.
Well, I appreciate the kind words.
You got it. Daniel Kaplan, D. Kaplan, that's Kaplan, SBJ is the way to find him out on Twitter. Follow along. Thousands do, tens of thousands do follow Daniel Kaplan on all Sports Business Journal issues. And, of course, there was a little bit of news out of Masson. I'll try to get Eric Fisher from SBJ on at some point in the next week or two. But we're up to our eyeballs here with stuff, man. We got an undefeated football team. We got a baseball team on the brink of maybe making the playoffs, maybe not making the playoffs, certainly doing it all on the road. We'll be monitoring all of that, Luke and I, out on the backfields of Owings Mills and on the television from Toronto and from Yankee Stadium in the Bronx all weekend long. Nasty at WNST.net reaches me anytime, anywhere. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. And anything you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear, no static at all, just like Steely Dan sang it. Morning newspaper reaches your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is free of charge and brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in shape there. Last but never least, if there is any breaking news at all, it will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. Promise, guaranteed. Been going on for almost 10 years now. About 10,000 of you on it, and you get the little vibrate going off on the phone. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Koulatsos will be here on Thursday driving you home as he does each and every Thursday and getting you ready for some undefeated Baltimore Ravens football. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports